And we're off. Hi, gang. Welcome back. Episode 569 of the All Dolphins podcast for Thursday, October 2nd, 2025. 3 days before the Miami Dolphins get back to action to face the mighty Carolina Panthers at Bank of America Stadium. Joined once again by Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. And Perk, on a scale of 1 to 1,000, how exciting is this match? Sorry. I can't even pick it. Sorry. Let's rephrase it. How important is it for the Dolphins to make it 2 in a row against a team they really should beat?
I don't want to blow it out of proportion. On a scale of 1 to 1,000, it's a 999.
Okay, no, we're not blowing it out of proportion.
No. We want to be reasonable here.
No, I couldn't help myself being a wise ass. A, because it's kind of who I am, unfortunately, and then B, because again, it's one of those matchups. The Carolina Panthers are really not a good team. On top of that, and this is where I always tell folks, every team deals with injury issues, okay? Because if you follow the Dolphins and their former players, like I do, Robert Hunt is on IR.
Yep.
His replacement, Chandler Zavala, was placed on IR this week. So the Panthers are going to be down to their third-string right guard for this game. And now their lead running back and second leading receiver, Chuba Hubbard, hasn't practiced yet so far this week because of a calf injury. So this is a team that's dealing with injury issues as well. That's really not loaded to begin with. So we'll talk more about the matchup probably in the next couple of days, but this was just kind of the little setup here. It's Thursday, so let's discuss, since we didn't do this yesterday, the Dolphins injury report. They're not going to have Storm Duck again, and they're not going to have Cedric Wilson, who is now a member of the 53-man roster after he was signed off the New Orleans Saints practice squad after undergoing a knee procedure, probably arthroscopic knee surgery, which Mike McDaniel said they were aware of at the time they signed him, which, of course, has brought quite a bit of digs and jabs, ridicule at the Dolphins for signing a guy off somebody's practice squad when he's not available immediately.
I don't quite understand the logic of it. If this was a hotly contested guy, if this was a guy they absolutely positively had to have, I would understand it more. Maybe Mike McDaniel will expound on that tomorrow when he speaks. But I don't understand it. I don't understand it.
No, I do too. And it's not like they're desperate at wide receiver even without him, because they had 5 other ones. Jalen Waddle, Malik Washington, Taj Washington, Nick Westbrook-Ikine, D. Eskridge. 5 is a workable number of wide receivers. Plus they have Theo Weiss and A.J. Henning on the practice squad. Not like they were in dire straits, and he's not helping you this week or maybe next week either. And it's not like maybe they could have used help at another position for somebody who maybe could help immediately, like, I don't know, say cornerback perhaps.
Yeah.
It was weird. And even when he is healthy, what is Cedric Wilson Jr. going to be? Is he even going to be active on game day?
I don't know. Not to be negative, but I feel that it's kind of a vote of no confidence for NWI and D. Eskridge, correct? Or
go ahead.
I'm not going to put anything on the practice squad guys because they're practice squad guys. But, boy, you do have 5 receivers. And D. Eskridge had a good camp. NWI serves a purpose as a big receiver. I know Darren Waller just took that job as the big target. But NWI is a guy who gets snaps anyway on special teams. Why not play him from scrimmage? I'm a little puzzled by this.
Yeah, no, the player I was going to, when I said the player I'm maybe thinking that perhaps there's a trust issue there would be Taj Washington, who has not been active for any game so far this season. So why? I don't know. Anyway, it is weird. Continuing with the injury report, Ethan Bonner limited with a hamstring injury. He dealt with it in training camp after the preseason game against Detroit. Seemed to be on track to play last week, no issues. And on Saturday, he pops up on the injury report, questionable, and then he doesn't play. And then the Dolphins also did not elevate anybody from the practice squad on Monday, and they played with 4 cornerback on the game day roster, which certainly was interesting. Alec Ingold had a rest day, was limited. Darren Waller still limited. It might be limited the entire season. It doesn't matter if he plays 20 snaps and is very productive. And then Jordan Brooks and Jonas Savai-Naya both are on the injury report, but they're listed as full participants. So, but this, of course, will be the first game without one Tyreek Hill. Perk, this is the first time you and I have done this podcast since the injury. So much for the Dolphin offense being about Tyreek and the threat of Tyreek. Now is going to be what? Waddle and the threat of Waddle, or what?
It better be a diverse threat, right? It better be Tua and Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle, and then to a lesser degree, Darren Waller and Ollie Gordon II and the offensive line, because that's who's going to have to fuel this engine. I have faith that they're going to be able to handle teams such as Carolina, such as New Orleans, such as Cincinnati without Joe Burrow, but this is not going to help them in a game such as against the Chargers, who come in here after this week. The Baltimore, Buffalo, Washington Murderers Row, the Tampa Bay at the end of the season. I don't see them before when they had Tyreek. Even though they haven't performed well against the upper echelon teams, when you have Tyreek, there's always a chance. Without Tyreek, now I have to see what is Mike McDaniel going to do to get them ready for opponents in those upper top tier teams. It's going to be interesting. I hope they do well, but if you saw my column yesterday, I don't think that they will from what we've seen over the past 3+ seasons, because I think the offense was about Tyreek and the threat of Tyreek. I had to get that back in there.
There you go. I think the offense can be efficient, and this is why I would implore Dolphin fans from both sides of the aisle, as they say, to not go after the game on Sunday. See, I told you the offense was not going to miss a beat, or see, I told you the offense was going to crash without Tyreek. That's going to be one game, because we've already done this with Jalen Waddle, because he had the big game against the Jets in 2023 when Tyreek was out. It was one game. It was a very good game. The circumstances were highly favorable, because even though the Jets did have a good defense at that year, their offense was, to quote another member of the South Florida Dolphins contingent, booty cheeks. And if you don't think that affects the way cornerbacks in particular maybe take chances and go for, leave their technique behind a little bit and try to make plays instead of doing their job, that's a factor. Not to say that Waddle can't do it. Dolphins drafted him 6th overall in 2021 for a reason. Mm-hmm. And he was good in his first 2 years, set the NFL rookie record for receptions as a rookie. Then he led the NFL in receptions, period. I think I have that right. His second year, and he led the NFL in yards per reception his third year. So he has been very good. This might be the time where he fully validates the Dolphins' decision to pick him at number 6, and maybe he'll make some guys shut up. I don't know, guys who wear blue Expos hats about the Dolphins maybe should have taken Penei Sewell instead at number 6.
Yeah, and you know what, Poop? It's a good time for the Dolphins to be on a little bit of a roll here, because we did see a clean game from special teams, and actually a really good game from special teams when you consider that they caused a fumble. They were 2 for 2 on field goals. They recovered the onside kick. They did a lot of good things. Defensively, we're still waiting. I wrote a column today about the cornerbacks are doing better than many people thought that they were going to do, especially, starting out the season when they hadn't been together for a while. Still waiting on that front seven to make its impact known throughout the whole game. They've had a sack here, a sack there. They've done a couple of good things, but still waiting on that front seven to come around. But this team is playing pretty good football the last 6 quarters, if you consider those last 2 against Buffalo and then the entire game against the Jets. So they're as ready as they've been all year. They look better without Tyreek these last 2 quarters than they did all through training camp, I think, and joint practices and preseason games. So they're about as well prepared as they could be, considering. I'm looking forward to what this offense looks like and what the entire team looks like rallying around the absence of Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, and I would think, to me, the offense is going to be I'm pretty confident the offense is going to be efficient.
Yes.
Against average or below average defenses, and I think there could be some issues against better defenses. Then again, for the last year and a half, maybe even before that, that was an issue regardless. So what you're losing again, I'm very curious to see is defenses compress the field a little bit more and get closer to the line of scrimmage, and what does that do for the running game? How does that impact Devon Achane? And again, we don't know that for sure. It's not just because of one game against the Jets in 2023 that the answer was provided. You mentioned Tyreek. His agent, Drew Rosenhaus, after the surgery said he's not going to require any more surgeries, which would be the best case scenario. And he's going to work feverishly to get back for the start of the 2026 season. And we hope it can be with the Dolphins if we can work something out and come up with a number that's agreeable to both parties. And then I guess I saw some shot on a quick video on Instagram where Tyreek is walking the day after the surgery. I need my doctors, my knee experts over here to tell me if that's unusual or that's normal. But what's your take on all of these particular facts?
Well, I'll start from the back end here. I had knee replacement surgery 5 years ago on my right knee. I was up walking the night after the surgery, or the night I had the surgery in the morning. That evening, I was walking down the hall in the. So I think that's probably normal. I don't think that's a superhuman Tyreek thing for that. That's my experience after having knee replacement surgery. I was up walking, like
Chris Perkins, Tyreek Hill walking, no big deal. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's right, exactly. I did it. I mean, who cares? I did it. But I think Tyreek is going to work feverishly in his rehab, right? I mean, we all would agree, everybody who's out there at practices, training camp, Tyreek is among the hardest working players we have ever seen. This dude goes hard in practice. He doesn't take any time off. He might joke around and dance and all that. He might even show up late, but that dude busts his butt. So I think that he is going to give everything he has to rehab. I would put him on the upper end of returns as opposed to the middle or the lower end. Yep. The big question, as we've discussed in the media room, is what is Tyreek going to look like? Because we've seen with Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, I don't know how to compare injuries, except Tyreek had the dislocation and damage to more than one ligament. That's a very serious injury. He's going to be 32 years old. He's a speed guy. When does that speed come back? When is Tyreek back to 100%? Would it be September of 2026, December of 2026, or would it be in 2027? I would have to say it's probably more likely 2027, but I would also have to say that knowing Tyreek, it's likely that he is back sometime in September of 2026. I don't know if it'll be with the Dolphins, but I would put money that Tyreek would be back sooner rather than later.
Correct. No, I would agree with you. If anybody can bounce back from that injury, yeah, because say what you want about Tyreek, that guy, when he's out there, he puts out like crazy. The question, of course, is what do the Dolphins do? I think I saw somewhere where his contract clause calls for some sort of a bonus that has to be paid on the third day of the league year in next March. I have a really hard time seeing the Dolphins, paying that, considering there'll still be a question mark at that time. So then it comes down to renegotiating a deal. Will the Dolphins say at that time, listen, he's going to be 32 next year? There have been, let's say maybe one or two headaches during his time with the Dolphins, give or take a dozen. Do we cut the cord and just move on? Again, this may be part of an overall bigger picture. If the Dolphins are blowing everything up, to me, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to bring him back. If the Dolphins are staying the course next year with, say, Mike McDaniel and Tua, they're going to be better with Tyreek Hill, probably even at 80% than they would be without him.
Yep.
So,
and they said they want to go with youth and draftees. So how does Tyreek, fit in with that? Plus, there's the NFL investigation that we don't know how that's going to come out. So there are compounding factors here.
Correct. Okay. Other topic, as you mentioned cornerback, so I'm going to bring up. I did something on Miami Dolphins on SI.com today on cornerbacks, a couple of different issues with the cornerbacks. I know you guys at the Sun Sentinel did the same at sunsentinel.com. Check it out. Twofold. Mine one was on Xavien Howard. If you don't know by now, he abruptly retired on Wednesday night after 4 games with the Colts, with a performance that was getting shakier and shakier by the game. Where a lot of questions this week to both head coach Shane Steichen and defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo, formerly of the Dolphins, was, what are you going to do with X? And then in the midst of all that, he missed practice yesterday for personal reasons, and in the evening put out an Instagram post basically saying he wants to spend time with his family. That's his focus now, not football so much. Of course, the skeptic in me would say, if he was balling, would he have retired on the spot like that? Who knows? Only X would know that for sure. But this goes for all of those, and again, including certain members of the Miami Dolphins beat, who were like, Dolphins need to bring him back, need to bring him back, need to bring him back. First of all, it wasn't going to happen because that ship had sailed, and clearly not the same guy. At his peak, X was a really, really good player, but injuries took their toll. And again, Father Time also has got a pretty good record.
Yeah, I would have to say that knowing X the way that we do, pride and performance were the main factors. And I'm not trying to, doubt the authenticity of what he said was the reason for his retirement, family. But knowing X the way we do, I would have to say it was pride and his performance that caused him to say, hey, let's not waste my time. Let's not waste the Colts' time. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't do damage to your reputation. Get out while you can. That's what I think was the story. So good luck to X. Always good knowing him. He was a straight shooter. This is a guy who, if you talk to X, you knew his favorite word started with an S, and it was a 4-letter word that he would often utter at the start of a sentence when you were interviewing him. Right. Suit. That's what I'm saying. Suit. So yeah, X was a lot of fun. He really was a lot of fun. So hopefully this works out for him, and he's a happier person, and his family is better off having him there full time.
And the connection here is, of course, again, as I wrote in my story, I have the numbers here too. It's absolutely insane that the Dolphins, actually, as you mentioned, are getting solid cornerback play from Rasul Douglas and Jack Jones, and Cornell Armstrong as the new nickel. Which is why actually I was having a discussion with one of the beat guys today that we're looking at the IR guys. Like Storm Duck now is going to miss a 4th straight game, and it's like, why wasn't he just put on IR? Yeah. Part of the reason would be maybe it wasn't clear cut that he would miss this amount of time, and you don't want to use up your 8 designations. The Dolphins have already used up 2 on Jason Sanders, Andrew Meyer. Austin Jackson is going to be 3. James Daniel is going to be 4. Which leaves you with 4. And then somebody mentioned, well, Jason Marshall is going to be 5. And I'm like, oh, are we so sure about that? Because I'm thinking maybe they'll wait it out. And if Cornell Armstrong continues to get the job done, it'll be like, okay, Jason, you're going to get a redshirt year and like it. But at the cornerback position, between Xavien Howard, Jalen Ramsey, and Kendall Fuller, those 3 guys are counting $36 million against the cap in 2025, and the entire core, including Kader Kohu, who's on IR, is 12.9. I mean, that's crazy. Yep. That is crazy stuff.
A lot of dead money there.
Okay, let's move on to the defense, and a really, really interesting comment by Anthony Weaver. And there were a lot of interesting comments. Full disclosure, I was not able to make it out, but I've seen the transcripts. I know what was said. Perk, as he always is, was there, probably asking 17 different questions of special teams coordinator Craig Ackerman. That's just a wild guess. But if we've noticed, this is from week 2 on. Yeah, now that I think about it, it's going to make it even weirder what I'm going to bring up. The first game, the snap count of the 4 edge rushers who were supposed to be the strength of this team, Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Matthew Judon, Chop Robinson, were pretty even. Starting game 2, it became heavily skewed with Chubb and Phillips getting most of the snaps, with Robinson and Judon clearly lagging behind. And Anthony Weaver kind of said on Thursday, and correct me if I don't have the wording correctly, but it's a byproduct of interim outside linebackers coach Sean Ryan, who's handling the position while Ryan Crow is on administrative leave, getting a feel for snap allocation.
Yep, that is correct.
Okay, am I the only one that it strikes weird too?
No, that's a very interesting comment. It almost sends up a red flag. I'll say it sends up a yellow flag. It's not green,
Orange,
but yellow.
orange,
It's orange. I guess so. Yeah, orange. Now I guess it does take some getting used to for Sean Ryan to make in-game substitutions. We heard Robert Prince, the wide receivers coach, kind of take the blame for some confusion in the Buffalo game. Is that right? Was it the Buffalo game?
New England game.
New England game, yeah. For getting the receivers in there and having the right personnel in there, having them on the field at the right time, So I'm sure that there's some gymnastics there and you have to work through that and get used to it. But man, you've got two veterans here who have come off of serious knee injuries in Chubb and Phillips. So you would think that you would be cognizant of, hey, here's some young, fresh legs with Chop. Let's get him out on the field. And so I wanted to ask a follow-up question of Anthony Weaver, but you couldn't get it in. Everybody else is asking questions. And the follow-up was going to be, did Ryan Crow have these difficulties or something about Ryan Crow? And I didn't, that's kind of a sensitive topic because of, how he left the team. The charges were dropped. But you're kind of careful about how you bring this up, and you don't want to make it seem like you're saying Sean Ryan is inadequate. But it does take some getting used to, I'm sure. So it did strike me as very curious that what's the big deal? Because really for Sean Ryan, this isn't game one. This is game 4. You're a month into the season and you should know your personnel. It's not like you just got onto the Dolphins staff. You've been there. You've been there through training camp and you know your personnel, the NFL. So it was kind of interesting that Anthony Weaver said that, and I do wonder, would this have happened if Ryan Crow hadn't had his situation? Would you be saying the same thing? Would the snap counts be a little more even?
Yeah, but then to me, then I would ask them why was the snap count pretty even against Indy, but not in the next 3 games? And it's funny because you mentioned both of them obviously coming off the serious injury issues. I don't notice a huge difference in terms of mobility from Jalen Phillips, who doesn't have a sack but has gotten close and also has created pressure that has led to sacks. I think he's been fine. I don't think he's been hugely impactful. Nobody on defense has been hugely impactful, but I think he's been fine. Bradley Chubb has 3 sacks, and it's the most deceiving thing ever, because to me he has been very, very, very unnoticeable.
I think both of them kind of have really, and with Jalen, I don't, Jalen, I think that he starts seasons slowly. I think that his sacks tend to come in bunches.
Yep.
Yeah, and so, let's wait and see with Jalen, but still knowing that Chubb is not Chubb, I would like to see more from Jalen. Knowing that run defense needs help, I would like to see more from both of them, although I believe most of the damage comes up the middle as opposed to guys around the edges. So that's a different issue when we're talking about the, Chubb and Phillips and the edge rushing and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know that Jalen Phillips is back to being Jalen Phillips. We do see him getting close. Would he have finished those plays a year and a half ago or 2 years ago? I don't know. But neither of them seems to be at their normal effectiveness, Chubb or Phillips. So to me, that would mean you would put Chop in there, the young guy, the guy who is coming off of a good second half of his rookie season. Get him out there and let's take advantage of his youth and the way that he finished last season. Matthew Judon, I don't know. Quite honestly, I can't tell you, maybe that's just the way it is with Matthew Judon, somebody of his age and his experience. But the Chubb Phillips thing, I'm with you. I don't see a big difference physically with Jalen Phillips, but he might just be a tenth of a second off right now. And maybe that's the thing. I would just say that I expected more out of both of those guys and the edge rushers as a group and the whole front seven. But those edge rushers, I expected them to be getting after the quarterback and making more impactful plays already.
You mentioned, though, the front line of the defense, and we got to talk about it because it's not been good.
No.
And again, there's nobody there. And I think I asked this on another podcast, like last night maybe. Is it possible that Calais Campbell was making that much of a difference last year? I know Anthony Weaver was asked about Kenneth Grant, and he made the point, which is a good point, that generally speaking, it's not easy for a defensive tackle to get into the NFL and immediately make a huge impact. Even for Christian Wilkins, it took a little bit, even though I would tell you, I can't necessarily recall because it was 2019 and the Dolphins were really bad on defense in those first 4 games. I can't recall exactly when it was that we started noticing him, but it's not been good for Kenneth Grant. It's 4 games. It's way too early to, I know some fans will be like, well, they messed up and they should have taken Tyler Warren. And it's not helping that Tyler Warren is completely balling out with the Colts, and the Dolphins certainly could have used a tight end regardless of what Darren Waller's doing. But that's somebody you'd like to see some increased production. And Zach Sealer also, who's not getting it done. And I know Weaver mentioned he's got to stop worrying about something along the lines of he's got to stop worrying about the fact he's playing with rookies all the time.
Yeah, you just need more from Zach. This is a veteran. I mean, set the contract aside. This is a veteran guy who you expected to be the best player in that front seven. Even with Chubb and Phillips and Chop and Jordan Brooks and Terrell Dodson, I expected Zach Sealer to be the leader of the front seven, to be a wrecking ball, to be good against the pass, where he's coming off back-to-back 10-sack seasons, and the run, where he was one of the best run stuffers on the number 9 run-stopping defense last season. I can't put it any more clearly. I expect more out of Zach Sealer. I don't know why he hasn't been better. Maybe he's feeling some pressure. Maybe it is the guys around him. There's no Christian Wilkins, no Calais Campbell, but Zach has got to do more. Kenneth Grant, as a first-round pick, has got to do more. Austin Clark, as the D-line coach, has got to do more. Anthony Weaver, as the defensive coordinator, has got to do more. But really, it's more about Zach Sealer and Kenneth Grant and the run defense. These guys are the first line of defense against the run. Before you get to Jordan Brooks, you're going to, Zach Sealer and Kenneth Grant have got to do their jobs. And, look, there's other guys involved here, but your first round pick and your veteran guy, they've got to be 2 of your better performers, and they have not been. They've both been disappointing.
No, without question. And the last point I want to make before we get out of here, Darrell Bevel said something that I had said before. So obviously, maybe on that one particular occasion, I had some clue what I was talking about, and maybe I just got lucky. Who knows? That Tua that quarterbacks, I think he was referring to Tua, needs to have some confidence in their offensive line and trust them. And I think we saw this. The point I made. We saw this Monday night. This is by far the least skittish Tua was in the pocket, even on those plays where the protection was giving way a little bit. Because in the first 3 games, it was like he was almost getting ready for, okay, when's the pressure coming?
Yeah, I don't blame Tua. That the right side of that offensive line, where you've got, just kind of guess who's at right guard right now. They've gone through four right guards, three different starters. James Daniels, Keon Smith, and Cole Strange have all started. And then Daniel Brunskill came in the second half against Buffalo to relieve Keon Smith. You've got Larry Borum there at right tackle playing in place of Austin Jackson, who we saw in the locker room yesterday. He's still got his foot in a boot, and he's using one of those carts like when you have a torn Achilles. So I would say that, it doesn't look like he's definitely not coming back for this game. He might be at least a week off. So that's the right side of the offensive line. For two on the left side, you've got Jonas Avainaya, who it's been a rocky start for him. You can rely on Aaron Brewer at the center position and Patrick Paul, who has been a brick wall at left tackle. But you've got three positions if you're Tua where you're a little, you're wondering, is the protection going to hold up?
Queasy.
There you go, Joe Philbin, baby. So I can understand it from Tua's standpoint, but just like we say with Zach Sealer, you got to man up. More is expected of you. That you've got to deliver. We're setting contract aside. You're the veteran guy. You're the guy that the team is depending on. You've got to figure it out. And I agree with you. Last game I think was Tua's best game this season. So he's got to build on that. He's got to trick himself into thinking I've got confidence in the right side of that line and play that way. But my head is off to Tua, and I wish him luck because the right side of that line could go on any snap. You just can't really count on it the way that you need to yet.
No, but unfortunately, I mean, those are the circumstances that you're dealing with, and it's like, as Gary Stevens would say, if it turns out to be chicken spit, you still have to make chicken salad.
That's right. Exactly.
Play on words over here. So if you're an old enough Dolphin fan, you know the reference. If you don't, check it out. Wild card playoff loss at New England in the 1997 season, 17-3. Gary Stevens was the offensive coordinator. Also previously coached with Jimmy Johnson at the University of Miami. That's too much information. On that TMI note, we're going to wrap it up. As always, please like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff. Keep the comments respectful. As always, por favor. He is Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Check his fine work at sunsentinel.com. Check out the website, please. Miami Dolphins on SI.com, where all the content is free. We'll be back here on Friday to wrap up the week, final injury report, whatever other developments need to be discussed. Until then, thanks, everyone.